Good morning. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. It's the start of a new trading day. Let's kick off with our top story. More Filipinos became jobless in the month of April. That's as unemployment rose month on month. Now, data from the Philippine Statistics Authority showed that unemployment rate stood at 8.7% in April. That is higher than the 7.1% in March of 2021. That means 4.14 million Filipinos were jobless in that month, higher than the 3.44 million in March. The PSA said employment rate declined month on month on the back of the reimposition of ECQ and MECQ in Metro Manila and the nearby areas. Now, by region, Metro Manila and Calabarzon had the highest unemployment rates. Metro Manila at 14.4% and Calabarzon at 13.4%. The April 2021 figure, however, is still lower than the record high rate of 17.6% we saw in April of 2020 when the government began imposing the mobility curbs across the country due to COVID-19. Now, the energy regulator says a task force will look into the recent power plant outages and the subsequent surge in the spot market prices. The Energy Regulatory Commission said the task force already identified 4 generation plants which need to undergo technical inspection to verify the outages and the actions taken to get back online. The group is now looking at other factors which lead to price increases, resulting in the imposition of the secondary price cap, or SPC. The SPC is a price mitigating mechanism designed to limit the, quote, persistent high market prices in the electricity spot market. The ERC also said it will be issuing showcase orders to generation companies that failed to comply with the reporting requirements. The agency ordered the GenCos last week to explain the plant shutdowns after noting that some of these firms have exceeded the maximum limit of the allowable unplanned outages in April. ERC chairperson and CEO Agnes de Banadera says the commission has been undertaking all the necessary efforts to help mitigate the perennial problem of power supply shortage during the summer months. Okay, guys, kicking off the market report with a virus update. First, in the Philippines, some good news here. The FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration here in the country, has granted emergency use approval to Sinopharm. Now, note that Sinopharm was already approved. It was actually the first Chinese vaccine approved by the World Health Organization. And this brings the number of vaccine manufacturers with emergency use approval here in the Philippines to 8. That's together with Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, Gamaleya, J&J, Bharat Biotech, and Moderna. Now, of course, this vaccine has seen its share of controversies at home. So far, no one has been held accountable over the illegal inoculation of the Presidential Security Group last year. Also, President Rodrigo Duterte has said to have received Sinopharm without EU approval. Now, the Philippines so far has inoculated around 6 million people. 1.5 million people have received their second dose. This is according to Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez Jr. Now, he had mentioned that we have 9.3 million doses received already now and expecting to receive 11 million this month. That's including 4.5 million from Sinovac. 2.28 million from Pfizer and 2 million from AstraZeneca and 250,000 from Moderna. Now, we've also started vaccinating, of course, the A4 population. That's around 35 million workers. And they said that they are now observing and waiting for guidance on the young population. That's around 29 million Filipinos in the age group. Now, President Rodrigo Duterte has also urged Filipinos to make sure you're taking the second dose. Data has shown that only around half of those that took the first dose actually went back for the second dose. Meanwhile, you've also got global cases exceeding 173.4 million and more than 2.15 billion vaccine doses have been administered worldwide. Now, let's take a look at our own market open here, firming up above 6,700, but still not back above those 6,800 levels we were hoping for. Of course, we pulled back yesterday, down 0.5%. And this, according to Chris Mangon of AAA, we had ended lower on the low trading volumes. He said that's typical for the first trading day of the week yesterday. So people are still feeling the sentiment. And he did mention total turnover was just 4.19 billion. That's just above half of what we are using to see on a daily basis. And he did mention investors turning cautious as in the rest of the world. And also after 6 straight sessions of net foreign buying, foreigners fleeing and turning to net sellers. A new quick check on the movers here as we open our markets. We are 5 minutes into the trading day. Meralco up by 1.8%, leading the charge here together with SM Investments and San Miguel. Meanwhile, on the loser board, we've got MPIC, BDO, and Mega World dragging down the boards. And finally, just a quick check on ICTSI. This is one stock that's been on the radar of a lot of investors the past week, and they have now said that their Rio unit over in Brazil has expanded into rail logistics. They formed a new company, IRB Logistica, and that will offer cargo handling, transport, and storage services over in Rio de Janeiro, Minas Gerais, and Sao Paulo. And this could feature a yard for storage and container stuffing. Now, this comes at the heels, of course, of ICTSI acquiring a bulk port facility called Manila Harbor Center, which is, of course, from the affiliate company Prime Strategic Holdings, and the stock did soar when that announcement was made. ICTSI trading at 147 pesos and 10 centavos. Checking in on the latest headlines, we're keeping our eyes on the 100 peso proposed wage hike for private workers in Metro Manila has been dismissed. Now, in a resolution dated May 4th, the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board said it has no jurisdiction to act on the petition filed by labor groups Union ng Mga Manggagawa sa Agrikultura or UMA and Anak Pawis. The Regional Wage Board explained it can only grant regional wage increases based on the standards established by law. UMA expressed its disappointment over the dismissal of the petition for technical reasons. It claimed that the decision only proved the Wage Board's bias against labor, as they do not see or do not want to see the real situation of workers on the ground. Now, Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez has ordered the Bureau of Customs to keep a closer watch on rice imports, and this comes after the government temporarily reduced rice tariff rates to boost local supply and tame inflation. In a statement, Dominguez said the country may experience a surge in imports from other countries that benefited from the temporary rate of 35% to avoid higher tax rates. Meanwhile, the Customs Bureau also reports that it is looking at the discrepancy seen in some rice imports from Vietnam, where a bulk of the shipments had declared values that are lower than the prevailing market prices. Now, recall that the BOC lost about 1.4 billion pesos in revenues due to under-declaration by the several importers to evade tariffs. MSMEs comprise 99.6% of all businesses here in the country, and they have suffered through this economic recession. Here to help us understand their options, we have with us Azel Solano. She's the Chief Communications Officer of Small Business Corporation of the Department of Trade and Industry. Good morning, ma'am, and welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Dan, and good morning to everyone watching this morning.
Ms. Azel, let's kick off with a quick update here on the MSME figures. How many have shut down permanently? How many have been able to recover? And how much leeway do they still have? How many months of revenues to still cover them throughout this pandemic? And how has the SBC assisted them?
Okay, thank you so much. Last year, actually, when the community quarantine was first imposed, around 40% of the total number of MSMEs nationwide have closed down or temporarily ceased operations. And well, when the GCQ was finally imposed after a few months, then that number actually decreased to 16%. So it's been a good improvement, a good data for us. But again, the ECQ just a few months ago, we had an ECQ, and that number actually, after the ECQ was imposed, now we have the GCQ with heightened restrictions. The DTI has actually been serving conduct a survey for MSMEs, and now the numbers they're expecting only around 8 to 9% of the number of MSMEs in NCR plus. Those are the remaining MSMEs that are still closed for now.
Okay,
We
so
have
from go ahead, ma'am.
okay. Okay, Small Business Corporation, we are a government financial institutions and an attached agency of the Department of Trade and Industry. We have the Bayanihan CARES program, and with that interest-free and collateral-free program, we have assisted around 30,000 MSMEs nationwide. The goal for this is to help them recover from the pandemic, and also for them to rehire their employees.
Ma'am, I just want to color the statements that you made vis-a-vis the unemployment rate that we've just reported for the month of April. Is this shocking to you? Were you hoping for, the like you mentioned, from 16%, you're already down to 8% na lang of closures. How does this figure now change your outlook on what's happening?
Actually, when the ECQ was imposed around from the data gathered by the DTI, there were around 1.5 million unemployed Filipinos. And this has improved, and we now only right now from the MSME side, because MSMEs contribute to around 60% of the employment rate. So there are still around 500,000 Filipinos that are unemployed now. So, we're hoping that with the improved condition in in the country, with the GCQ with heightened restrictions now, with improvements with the vaccinations, we're hoping that more businesses would reopen, and of course more Filipinos would go back to their jobs.
Okay, so hopefully just a bump in the road from the recovery that we've already seen in the first quarter of this year. Ma'am, let's talk about the loans to the MSMEs hitting, at least for the COVID-19 related loans, 4.3 billion pesos. Is this enough? There's 10 billion pesos allocated in Bayanihan 2. Is that enough? How much is really needed here?
Okay. For 4.3 billion, we've released that amount to 30,000 MSMEs. So from the figures, there are over a million registered MSMEs nationwide, and that fund is actually not enough. Since January of this year, we have been receiving 1,000 applications weekly, and you can imagine that the need is actually there. But we also have a bulk of the funding from Bayanihan 2 is actually allocated for businesses in travel, or in tourism businesses. So unfortunately, they're still hesitant to take up loans because they cannot operate yet, and they want to be responsible business people, and without being able to operate, they won't be able to pay off their loans as well. So there's still around 3.8 billion available funding for those in tourism. But for MSMEs at large, we've actually provided or released around 2.8 billion pesos to assist them. So, if the 4.3 billion, even the 10 billion funding allocation is not enough actually to assist MSMEs nationwide.
Very interesting. So there's actually some liquidity still sitting there, loan liquidity that's not being tapped by the tourism sector. Are you doing anything to remedy the situation? Are you asking for more budget that might be reallocated to the SMEs or the MSMEs, which is now crucial?
Actually, today, this afternoon, we're going to have a meeting with the Department of Tourism, because that funding, we're going to discuss with them how we can download the funds to the MSMEs, and given their hesitation, we can't really do anything much right now. But we have been doing weekly webinars with business groups, with tourism groups. So we have been quite aggressive in our information campaign for the Bayanihan CARES. But unfortunately, with the restrictions in mobility and business operations, we can't really force MSMEs to
To take it up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that program and close with that, ma'am. So this is actually for can you please explain who specifically can apply for this loan, and also how much revenues do you need to be having liquidity right now? I mean, what about the companies that are not doing well? Are they eligible to tap into these loans? And there's also a requirement that they might be BIR registered. What about those that aren't?
Okay, actually, we have the Bayanihan CARES is a very lenient kind of financing program for the national government. We were given a 10 billion fund, but 8.08 billion have been downloaded to small business corporation to implement this program. So it's an interest-free and collateral-free financing program for businesses operating for at least just 1 year as of their application date. There are two modes of application. So first is we just ask for their permits. So it could be a barangay permit or a mayor's permit. Second mode is if they already have been submitting their financial statements with the BIR. So we tried to be more lenient and we minimize the requirements for MSMEs to apply. Actually, we also have a separate window for OFWs, displaced OFWs, who would want to start their own businesses. So for Bayanihan Cares, the loan amounts they can apply between 10,000 up to 5 million pesos. It depends on their assets and annual sales. So we also look at that. But these figures are based on pre-pandemic operations. So meaning we do not look at their operations during the pandemic because of course no one would have a very healthy financial status during the pandemic, and the documents as well. We what we require are pre-pandemic documents, so it should be relatively easy for the MSMEs to apply. It's all done online, and if they have questions, they can just reach out to Small Business Corporation and with the Department of Trade and Industry to get more information or to ask us if they're eligible for their loan.
Excellent. So they will be looking at their performance pre-pandemic and also zero interest, no collateral loan. We're only hoping for more funding for this program to be able to reach more MSMEs because, as you mentioned, there's still a lack of funding for that. Thank you so much for those insights. That was, of course, Ms. Azel Solano, Chief Communications Officer of SBC. And that's a first look into the business day. Today's Tuesday, June 8, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market close at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.